Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
How are you doing? How was your session?
Good. It was really fun. The first one of the day for me, so I enjoyed it a lot.
So, to begin with, I'd just like to know about your journey as a writer in media. How was your experience? How you started?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually, from when I was very young, I was 15, I think, when I decided I wanted to be a journalist and a writer,
Yeah.
and I got to do both. I was in print and then in TV news for about 9-10 years. My first book actually got commissioned at Jaipur at the Lit Fest, which I
Wow.
was covering, and that was my
A lot
start.
of memories with
Yes,
JLS.
it's amazing, and watching it grow over the years.
Yeah.
And what I love is that you get to meet so many interesting people, and I think coming from covering the festival to writing, presenting books, and doing interviews, it's been a great journey.
So, your book, Broken News,
Yeah.
it is about the modern age dysfunctions in media and in
Yes.
urban life. So, what made you delve into this theme and write about it?
I think sort of living through the drama is obviously very dramatized. It's a work of fiction,
Yeah.
but just seeing the toll that 24/7 news can take in terms of our priorities, the way we look at relationships, what we prioritize, and of course now with social media being 24/7,
Yeah.
it was a fun way of kind of exploring that, but again with a fictional lens. Yeah.
तो जो आप अपने दोनों रोल्स बहुत बखूबी निभा रही थी एज अ जर्नलिस्ट एंड एज अ राइटर सो वर देयर एनी challenges creating balance between both या एक दूसरे को इन्फ्लुएंस ना करें दोनों ही प्रोफेशंस
I think वो पहला book के साथ it was actually easier because I was kind of writing about a world I knew, but I had to be very careful. My entire, I think, news team and colleagues were like, who's in it? किसके बारे में लिखा है? So I had to be very careful about those kind of things. But it was not about any specific person. So, that was, I think for me, now that I've started writing non-fiction, that's a bit more like being a reporter, right? Because you're more used to doing the research and it's not just imagining and, building.
So how your writing has evolved, like when you started your first novel and currently the project which you are working,
Yeah.
क्या कोई evolve आपने होते हुए देखा है process?
There's it's actually a very good question. Between my first novel और second novel के बीच में I would say that it was about learning the craft of writing. जैसे हम लोग TV के लिए news scripts लिखते थे versus a book versus a bigger book.
Yeah.
There's a big difference.
Yeah.
And now with the mental health books, I feel like the common theme is storytelling. So I want to make sure that we can tell stories which are like the way you all do, communicate better, talk about something that's a very difficult topic but in an easier way. So learning to tell those stories, learning to have people share stories with you, that's an art all journalists
Very
have,
true,
right? When
yeah.
you're doing interviews. But putting it in a way that people can understand, but you're staying true to the information, right? I think that's been the journey. It's been, I think, a challenge a little bit more in terms of just where do you start, where do you stop? How do you,
Yeah, I've seen you, talking about mental health on many platforms in your books and आपकी जहाँ भी presence होती है. So what made you or intrigued you into this mental health issue? Have you seen any progress in terms of people talking about mental health?
Yeah. Oh my God, RedFM is talking to us about mental health. That is huge. That is huge progress.
Yeah.
I would say, I think, over the pandemic, we started seeing a lot of mainstreaming. It's always been a challenge. I think in India, for us to understand that, this is something that affects everybody. So
Right,
one
true.
thing I've learned is, there's mental health, there's mental illness. We all have mental health.
True.
Most of us have stories of struggles, but pehle, we didn't have the vocabulary, right? We didn't know what we're talking about. Now we know what is parishani, what is anxiety, what are the problems. I think I've seen, definitely I'm a bit hopeful. The last 7 years we've been doing this, I definitely saw more people coming up. And what's brilliant is you are doing this interview, which is going to reach millions of people.
Right.
I think you will find people will come up to you and say, you're making a safe space. Can I talk to you about something? And finding how do you get that information. Nowadays, the challenge is getting credible information, not just your Insta psychology, but how do you
True,
find
yeah,
information you can use and how do you get access to help when you need it? So
I follow you on Twitter, by the way, and I've seen you many giving posts and being very active on Twitter. So there are many youngsters whose mental health is affected because of social media.
Yeah.
Is there any message which you would like to give to them?
And of course, I worked at Twitter. The company was known at that point. No, I would, 100%. I mean, any of you watching or listening to this, I think let's not forget what the beauty of social media is. Let's not use it to compare each other, all the time. I think it's not just young people. A lot of people get anxiety and stress
Because of social media.
because of the way we use it. So I think one thing, as I've seen in the mental health space, in the pandemic, definitely with our friends in the LGBTQ community, it was a positive because it connects, right?
Yeah.
There is a way of reaching people you cannot see in your day-to-day life, finding people who are like you. That's been amazing. Mental health on Twitter has been a beautiful community. The flip side is for young people, but anyone, actually even my age and older, don't use it. I mean, many of us are putting certain parts of our life.
Yeah.
So don't you don't use it to compare and be like, oh, this one's doing so great and look at that beautiful holiday.
Yeah.
Why is my life so rubbish? You maybe try and use it a little bit more mindfully.
Yeah. So I think that way will not lead you to any mental health issues or something like
Hopefully
that. You
not.
will enjoy the platform,
Yeah.
you'll enjoy the purpose of it.
Yeah, or find the people that you need to find. Find your community. You can find that also online.
Yes.
Right? So,
And one last question कि जब आप लिखते हो या जब आप कुछ चीज नहीं पढ़ रहे होते हो, is there any particular ritual or habit which is involved in it?
oh
जो
my
कि आप
god. When you're writing,
especially लिखते वक्त, हाँ.
yeah, it's, I can be very superstitious about when I'm writing.
Okay.
But no, my first book I actually wrote out longhand, and that has stopped. But I want to go back to that because I feel like the difference between writing on paper, which we've all forgotten. When we were
Right.
kids, we used to all, between writing
Now
on
it's
paper.
tabs and
Yeah,
mobiles.
yeah. And I think there's a bit of a gap, like I felt that first time writing it out and then typing it. You get to edit on the way, but there's also something very magical about writing in notebooks. So with my new book, hopefully I'll go back to that. But in terms of reading, I would just say the best advice I've gotten from people is just like read new things. Like this in this session, they were saying like
Yeah.
find things that other people are not reading.
Right,
That
right.
also gives you a lot of joy.
What are you reading these days?
I just finished reading The Imagination Muscle for this session. I read a book on rest, which I would love to recommend to all of you. It's a non-fiction book. It talks about, we always talk about being busy,
Yeah.
being productive, but there's a huge role to be played, I think, even in mental health. Like,
Right,
how
right.
do you rest? How do you
Preoccupied always in their heads.
Full, exactly. And can you make time for yourself to
Right.
rest and recharge? Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you
yeah.
so much.
बजाते रहो बाबा बजाते रहो
93.5 Red FM.
बजाते रहो